it's a protocol. So Gmail can kick you out of Gmail, but they can't stop you from sending email. And Nostr is also a protocol. So you can send it permissionlessly. Bitcoin is also a protocol. It's not a platform. Nobody controls it.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Space Tomatoes podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Havok.
I'm Alex. Hello, welcome back.
And today we have a special guest with us, Chris Liss, host of the Chris Liss podcast. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, actually, we did a show with Constant, right? And I butchered his name, apparently. If you watch the beginning of that one, it's pretty funny. But one of the things I did was after that show with him was go and sign up on Nostr. And Nostr stands for Notes and Other Stuff Transmitted by Relays. I've actually got that part down. And it's kind of a Twitter-ish, I guess it's X-ish, but also more kind of a platform that also incorporates wallets and the ability to use cryptocurrency for microtransactions, to do what's called value for like podcast hosts, etc., where you can, maybe you don't want to subscribe for, $10 or $5 a month or whatever, but you watch occasionally when a subject interests you, and you might want to send them a little bit of cash, And so I've really enjoyed that. But one of the things that's striking about it for me is like signing up for Nostr was easy, but then getting the entire cryptocurrency, portion of that set up and getting everything to where I could do what, the zaps or micro transactions, was challenging, at least a little bit. And so one of the things I want to do is have someone on here that's more knowledgeable about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency than I am particularly, and just to kind of do a Q&A and talk a little bit about that. So, I guess we could start out with, what is Bitcoin and why the heck would anyone care?
Yeah, so I'm not like even in the top 1,000 most knowledgeable people about Bitcoin, but I can tell you, what I find, why I, think it's valuable, and why I think most people, if they understood it, would find it valuable. It's basically just a store of value. It's just like a battery for energy. So imagine, if you have, a bunch of energy like generated from solar panels, and you can use it, but if you have surplus, you want to store it before it runs out. And this just stores it there, right? It literally is just a network that you can put this energy in, and it's there for you later. Now, the way you get the energy isn't from the sun, although I guess you could mine it from solar, but you get it from dollars, which are infinitely printable. So this energy that you have from the fiat system it can be just generated, which depletes, the value of your particular store. So if you have X amount of dollars in your bank, X over what's the denominator of that, right? Because it's, in like Zimbabwe, they had these I had a $6 billion bill from Zimbabwe, a real one, I think, and it's just the denominator really matters. The numerator is not the only thing. And so this energy is kind of leaking every time they increase the denominator. It's literally reducing your fraction. And then you can actually put it into a different system that has a fixed denominator. And it's just like, so the solar's coming in, and I can use it really quick, try to use all of it, turn on all my appliances because it's hot out now. Or I can decide, well, maybe I'll want some of this from for later and I can store it in this battery. So it's this battery that holds the energy. Now, that's not all it is, but in terms of like a simple analogy, it's just like, this is a way you can keep some of what you have without it being debased into nothingness.
Right. Okay. And so, and this is a perfect time for this particular question, right? Yeah. When I talk to people about it, I get a lot of, well, that's not real money. And obviously okay, neither is the paper that you think is real money. I mean, it was printed into existence with no backing and then loaned out at interest with no backing, and just somehow money keeps coming back in to repopulate that with plus interest, but it doesn't stop the printer from continuing to occur. Now, you look at right now, and a lot of people that I talk to about Bitcoin are like, oh my gosh, the thing tanked. It's at 70. And it's like, yeah, well, your dollar is at a fraction of the value it would have been, it was, some years ago. So how do you talk to people when they have kind of that standoffish, well, it's lost, it's so volatile, things of that nature?
Well, it is volatile, right? Like in dollar terms, it'll be worth 125. The next, few months later, it's worth 65 or 60. But it's volatile to the upside over time, which is, it's been volatile the whole time, and it just makes higher lows and higher highs. And, it's possible it goes to zero and everyone loses interest, but to date, it's only been volatile to the upside, whereas the dollar is not quite so volatile, but it is very steady and consistent to the downside. And if you look at what your dollar bought in 1970 or 1940 versus now, it doesn't go down, 50% in 3 months or 85% in some of the bigger drawdowns for Bitcoin, but it only is going in one direction very steadily. I mean, there's some little, when they print a whole bunch, inflation may, jump up suddenly to 10%, but it's still low volatility compared to Bitcoin, but it is downward trajectory completely. And we know it's not going, I mean, I think it was Safedine said, if you wanted to kill Bitcoin, governments could. All they would have to do is be totally fiscally responsible. And then there would really be no need to have this battery that preserves your purchasing power, because the dollar in your bank account would be preserving it, right? Because they didn't keep inflating it. But we know they're never going to do that. All you got to do is turn off gravity and you could jump out a window from any floor and survive. Yeah, fine. If you could turn off gravity, that's fine. If you could stop them from printing, that's fine. But we know that's never going to happen. So, I think that's the argument. Now, they don't care about the argument though, because see, people are just invested in a worldview more, I think, than, right? They're just it's not Bitcoin, right? It's you're a conspiracy theorist and you think, you don't believe they were just trying their best during COVID or whatever else you believe. I don't make assumptions about you guys, but whatever. I'm just saying
I'm conspiracy factualist. I'm sorry, but they find one that it isn't true at this point, right? I mean,
it's 2026 now, dude. I mean, come on, this, let's not even go back. There's nothing to litigate anymore. It's over, right? So reality is the jury, and the jury is made a verdict. And the thing is so there's that hurdle that you're never going to cross. They're going to be the late to come, because they're not interested in how do I preserve my wealth? They're interested in how do I preserve my worldview? And so preserving your worldview is a whole different question than preserving your wealth. But an open-minded person, of which I know many who are still in the old worldview and don't really get it, that's who we're talking to, right? Because the true, I don't want to think about this. This boils the oceans or whatever, but whatever. They're still reading the New York Times. I mean, it's let's just forget it. It's just, there's no point. Now, you go to insane asylum, and try to have you have a much better chance to connect, with somebody. And I'm being serious. But so I'll just get into it about Nostr. And, I'm not the expert on this, but I have a Substack and I have some subscribers, and I don't really like it. I like writing and talking, right? And I try to add value. And if people recognize value, I like that some of them subscribe. But I hate the subscription model because it's a bad deal for them. Shit. Or they're paying $70 a year or $10 a month. Dude, Spotify's $12 a month. At Spotify, you can shit on it all you want, but it's every piece of music, recorded. You can get Beethoven, you can get Bach, you can get it. You're going to really pay the same amount for my ridiculous content versus the entirety of human music composition, or you're going to get a AI subscription that you can basically get, do half your work for you and, a quarter of the time. And again, it's a bad value, right? And so I don't think it's good to subscribe to my Substack for $10 a month. And also I don't really want to be on the hook for on command giving content, right? Like content comes to you, ideas come to you, or they don't, right? I don't want to just have to publish because, oh, I've got to create something for these people that are paying. That's a bad deal for me. I want to be able to, walk the earth for 6 months if I feel like it, and come back and I didn't like, oh shit, all these people were paying and I didn't do anything. You know what's great? If I publish something or do a podcast and you can give me 50 cents or $1 because you like that podcast, and you're like, that really kind of connected with me. Here's $1. And you're free. You're not obligated to do it ever again. You're not obligated to track down and cancel your subscription. Oh shit, I was subscribing to this for 2 years. I didn't even listen once, right? You don't put that burden on you. You get out your credit card, all that. You just literally pay your $1 and you never have to think about it again. Or maybe you listen next week and you pay another $1 and you get, 1,000 people doing that every week. Like you're good, right? And so to me, that is Nostr. Now, of course, you don't need Nostr for that, but Nostr is the social grid where you see all the people who are putting things in your feed. I now follow you guys. So if you say something interesting, I'll shoot you 50 cents, 20 cents, because that's cool. Now I have a grid of people who might say something that makes me think about something or consider something I wouldn't have. And that adds value to me, points me down a rabbit hole I wouldn't have gone down. And now we're in an ecosystem. So now, it's people work on, I know I'm talking a lot, but people work on incentives, right? Like saying like, you're going to get freedom tech and this is the freedom thing. And this is the better way to do it. Nobody gives a shit about like being the freedom guy or what. That's just all platitudes. What is it in for them, right? What's in it for you? What's in it for you is you can pay me. You listen every week. And you feel like I'm adding value, but you don't want to get your credit card out. Very sensibly don't want to deal with that. But you do feel like you want to shoot me $1 or $2, tip me, because it is unbalanced that you're getting value and giving nothing. You want to pay. You just don't have a good way to do it in a proportional way that makes sense. And this gives you the opportunity. So first, it gives them a chance to pay. Second of all, it gives them the chance to get into the future, right? You say, Nostr is easy, but connecting the payment rail is hard. Well, you know what? 1997, I don't know how old you guys are, maybe close to my age. Getting my email set up. What's SMTP? What the hell is that? And I got to, getting internet literate was hard, but it was the future. And it was my whole job. The whole reason I had a job was because I, for whatever reason, decided I was curious enough to get into this and got a job building an online company. The future is Nostr. The future is peer-to-peer, private keys. AI is going to generate all this bullshit. And they can recreate you or me or whatever in a convincing way, but can't sign your private key now, can they? So this is in your interest to do. Even if you're a normie, this is like email, which all the normies do, and browser. So sorry, I've been ranting for a while. I've been rambling, but I'll let you guys say what you think about that.
No, and that's awesome. I love the ranting. Alex, did you have something?
No, I mean, I'm just a complete noob to Bitcoin completely. Like, I mean, I've heard of it, obviously. I know zero about it. I wouldn't know not how to get into it. But I mean, to me, maybe I'm wrong. It kind of seems like the easier way to store like gold or silver or like something like that. Maybe like there's a parallel there, except it's just a little more portable. Is that kind of
that's actually
how it works?
Pretty good description. Lynn Alden, you know who Lynn Alden is? She's kind of prominent in. Okay, good. You guys, I love this. You guys are not out of like the Bitcoin influencer. You guys are not. No. You guys are clean. Your brains are clean. You have no preconceptions. It's good. Okay, so Lynn Alden, just like a prominent. She like is very smart. Does she's Twitter finance stuff, big following. She's on Nostr a lot. Good, good. I mean, her stuff is good. But she wrote a book called Broken Money. And in the book, she said something, it was just a small thing, but it was really interesting that, gold became, and this Saif Dean talks about this in his book, The Bitcoin Standard, but basically like gold became money over the centuries, over the millennia. And why did it become money? Because like, obviously you understand why we need money, and barter is just not going to work because we need a unit to convert everything, right? We can't be like, well, how many apples is a pair of shoes? It's just, we can't do that, right? So we need like a neutral unit that we can price everything in, right? Like how much is this worth? But it can't be like apples can't be money because they go bad. And like seashells were money for some like inland tribes, but then some seafaring tribe showed up with like a huge thing of seashells and bought all their stuff, and all they had was a bunch of worthless seashells. So it has to be scarce, right? It can't be seashells, which might be scarce locally, but not really scarce. So gold is scarce. It's durable, right? It's, there's a lot of things about gold, it's portable. I mean, it's divisible. There's a lot of things you can make uniform coins with it. There's a lot of like money isn't just random what we choose as money, right? We can't use apples. We can't use certain things. We need money. There's certain natural occurring commodities that are better for money than others. Gold ends up being the best. But then I think it's in Lynn Alden's book, she said around 1850, the telegraph gets invented. And now you can communicate at the speed of light. You can communicate instantly with somebody over distance. But gold, you got to put that thing on horseback, or and so like if we're running a business and speed matters, which it usually does in business, we're going to have promises. Okay, I'll get you the gold in a week. It's going to take a week to get over there. So it's all these ledgers, all these pieces of paper with gold, right? I can't just give you the gold quick enough to like get this thing going before the competitor does. And so as international commerce, everything's connected, internet, gold is just woefully insufficient at the speed. So it's all just paper promises and paper, right? And then you have a problem. You have these crises where too much paper is issued. There's too much debt, the financial crisis. It's not backed up by the actual housing. The price of the house is inflated. Everyone's going underwater. It's not the speed of commerce. So now you have this thing that has all the properties of money. It's scarce, it's divisible, you can send it, it's transportable, much more transportable over space than gold, much more easily. You don't have to like verify it. Imagine like weighing the gold and trying to figure out that this is real and not fake gold. There's all these things with gold. It's very hard. That Bitcoin, it's immediately verified, it's sendable over space, it's programmable. I mean, it's digital money for the internet age, for the information age. And so once the telegraph got invented, gold was there since Egypt, right? Like it was the best. It was the king. And but then as soon as we got to this sort of light speed communication, it's still, doing well. It went up, but it's not really suitable for the modern world. And you're right. It is gold, but the digital form, which can now keep pace with what we need it for the digital economy.
Yeah, I actually just used that exact same analogy in that, gold, it's scarcity, number one. You called that out, and that is a huge component of it, right? The seashells was another great example because that's one I always go back to. Gold is an excellent store of value. It is a terrible means of exchange. That's just the reality of it, right? You mentioned, obviously counterfeiting is a, big part of that. Lead, gold, very similar weights, very similar densities, but value-wise, not the same, right? Because lead,
make it silver now,
right? Exactly. So, that's huge, and the medium of exchange is the thing that Bitcoin brings. It's got scarcity built into it, right? So one of the things that our fiat system has is a zero scarcity model. I mean, literally, COVID came along, and next thing trillions of dollars were just poofed into air just because, why not? We can just do this. And because there's no scarcity, there's also no inherent value to this paper, right? I mean, okay, maybe the paper stock has some limited value, but, other than that, there's no inherent value. Whereas Bitcoin, once you own a portion of it, right, there's only 21 million Bitcoins available, period, ever. It doesn't go up.
Yeah,
is that correct?
That's the limit. And probably some are lost forever. Maybe eventually like the quantum stuff will locate some of the lost ones, but there's probably 19 million, and everybody's lost a little bit of it. I've lost $20 worth a few years ago. This is probably like $200 worth. It's like it's dangerous, right? There's no customer service. I'm sorry. I lost some coins. I don't know, there is none. But yeah, I think, it's the reason why the normie doesn't buy it yet. Again, not the normie that is completely bought into a worldview, but just the sort of open-minded normie that's just curious, is that it isn't a medium of exchange yet. I mean, it is in places, in El Salvador maybe, or on the beach where they have all that stuff. But, if you're going to go to the grocery store, they're probably not going to take it. And And people are, okay, well, when's that going to happen? And it needs to happen. And some people like Jack Dorsey are doing a lot, building tools to kind of make them interchangeable, and maybe that'll happen. I don't know. I think there, maybe Lightning will do it. I don't know enough about the tech, but it's a second layer. Like on chain, there's like costs of settling things. The blocks are only 1 megabyte, so we can't have everybody's coffee purchases going in every Bitcoin block. That's going to all be second level, but that kind of makes sense, right? Like you don't have your entire bank account you don't have like, you might have 10 grand in your bank account, but you don't put it in your wallet when you go down to the grocery store, right? You might have like $80 in your wallet for like the small stuff. And then, when that runs out, you go back to your ATM and re-up. I think it might be more like that. And the Lightning will be like your paying wallet. It may be that that you exchange it for dollar stable coins. I don't know enough about stable coins, but that's how the digital dollar becomes layer 2. So I don't know how much of a medium exchange it will be. And part of me thinks that it doesn't have to be a medium exchange like some people think. It just has to be possible to hold everything else to account. Because like if they start printing, then everyone flees. And then you see what I mean? Like it's not that everyone has to go, use it as such. It's just that it exists is this powerful deterrent. Because if you start messing around and inflating, people will run. Now, it hasn't deterred it yet, but let's see when it gets up to 20% of the global, GDP, 40% of global assets. Let's see what happens then, that anytime you mess around and cheat, your whole country flees into Bitcoin, and then, okay, well, we can't mess around anymore. So I'm not sure if it has to be the thing itself, or it just needs to be there in enough size as a threat to the system.
I think probably for people even older than I am, but I mean, for myself, I mean, there is a feeling of assurance when you're holding something.
Day over here, or what? I mean,
yeah, right? No, but I mean, there is a feeling of assurance when you're holding something like tangible in your hand versus something that's digital. That, I mean, especially having no knowledge of how things work, it's just like for me, I'd choose, like I'd rather have a bar of gold than a bar of gold's worth of Bitcoin, just because I don't know enough about it. And it kind of seems like a bit of a gambling aspect to it, sort of like the stock market in essence. Where, I mean, of course, cash value goes down always, but the way that flows kind of seems like that to me.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, it's an abstraction, right? Like it just seems like, but I mean, you look at your bank account, right? And your bank account has this number in it, and then you spend some and the number goes down, and you get a paycheck and your number goes up, right? But like, it's all just a digital abstraction, right? And what backs that up? Well, that you can get it out, but okay, maybe the bank permits you to get it out. You're not, you may have had some wrong think, but you haven't gotten busted for it yet on social media or whatever you said. So the bank isn't interfering with your ability to remove and use this money. But then there's other risks, like they print so much money that your 10 grand is only purchasing 2 grand worth of goods now because they inflated the shit out of it. So you have a risk of that, right? You can pull the cash out, but it's not buying as much as it did. And it's like everybody can take out 10 grand now who has it and buy 10 grand worth of goods. But if everybody takes out 10 grand and tries to buy 10 grand worth of goods, the price of those goods is going to go up. So the first person can do it, but not everybody, right? So there's all of that. But I get, okay, bar of gold, that's a little bit different, right? It's they can only create like 1% to 2% more gold every year. You got this in your hand. But you can't go to the grocery store with it, right? You gotta sell it to somebody. Like you got to go to your local gold shop. I don't know if he's going to give you 100 cents on the dollar for it. Is anybody watching you carry this bag into the gold shop and what you exit with? That seems a little sketch. Like, if I'm criminal, I'm going to be hanging out near the gold shop and see whoever's walking out with the satchel and maybe follow where that guy's going. I don't like that. This is private. I mean, it's public. The blockchain's public, but it's private in the sense is you could send a transaction from anywhere in the privacy of your home or someone else's home or whatever. And you have a key, a private key, if you have it in cold storage. Now, most people are going to just buy IBIT, the ETF, or maybe they'll buy it on an exchange. Like River is a good exchange, and so they could just buy it and have it in an exchange. And River has the keys, and that's more like an investment account, right? You'll have a password, and you got to trust them. And I don't know them personally, but they seem like they're above board. But You never know. When a crisis comes, who knows, right? About other people. You don't know them. They might have families to feed, and desperate times calls for desperate measures. But that's probably the way the normies would do it. Now, if you take it into storage, like onto your private custody, then you have sort of proof of it because you have the key, the only key that can send it and move it. And, somebody else could guess your key. They would just like, I always say, there's 10 to the 15, quintillion grains of sand, or this quadrillion. I don't know, it's a quintillion, 10 to the 18 atoms in a grain of salt, maybe. And there's 10 to the 77 possible keys. So, it'd be like guessing one atom in a grain of salt, but in the salt, in the whole salt flat, and, and if there was a salt flat the size of the solar system, it would be like guessing one atom. They're not going to guess it, So, if you have the knowledge, you have possession, basically. It's like, that's what's holding it in your hand, but you're going to have to go through the understanding of why that is, to feel that feeling, that satisfied, that this is real, that this isn't just some vaporware that could disappear on you.
And
to break it down even a little simpler, so say somebody had that 10 grand in their bank and they wanted to convert that into Bitcoin. How would you even go about doing that?
Well, you can just go to an exchange. So say River's a good exchange. Like, that's one. There's tons of them. Some people use Coinbase. I don't love Coinbase, but whatever, it works. You go and you just put in your bank account and routing number to an exchange. And then once it's connected, you just say buy and buy whatever amount you want, and it'll suck it in right from your bank account. And then you now have it at that exchange. Now, you don't have the keys at that point. The exchange has the keys and you have an account. So you basically have an IOU with the exchange. And then if you wanted to take it privately, you'd have to get some sort of wallet, either, like a cold storage wallet or like a less recommended with a lot. If you had a lot, you probably wouldn't want to use like a hot wallet that's online. And then you could send it back to your wallet. I'm not the expert in this at all. So like, there's people who do tutorials on this stuff, who make the stuff. But I'm just, I know a little bit about how it works. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, that's actually
typically
not
a transaction.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Good. No, I was just going to ask if there's some kind of transaction fee involved with that typically, or how do they make their money?
On the exchanges, usually there's like a fee, like 0.5% or 1%. So say if you buy 10 grand, it might cost you $100 or something like that. You can do recurring buys, and sometimes there'll be specials. There'll be like no fees, because these companies are all holders, so they kind of want everyone to go in. So but it's, it's usually like less than 1%. More than 1% is too much. Like, don't do it. And then to send, there's usually like a little fee, but it's like, I think it was Sailor who was saying, like, if you wanted to send $1 billion worth of gold from the US to Australia, it might cost you like $1 million to send it, but like maybe $5 to send $1 billion worth of Bitcoin to Australia. So it's, it's the transaction fees. They'll probably get bigger, but that's not a big thing.
Yeah. The thing I use Trezor, right? It's a hardware wallet, very secure. Right. At least I think they are. They put a lot of effort into making these things pretty bomb-proof, even in shipping, right? So they, put actual physical stickers over the ports. If it's removed, it's one of those, void type things. You're not going to remove that thing and plug into it and compromise the device. But once you have that, it's yours. Nobody can do anything to compromise that.
Just so you know, this is your podcast and you guys will decide what to air, but you might not want to say like what you have. It's not like, someone's going to come to your house tomorrow or something like that, but it's just sort of like, it depends how paranoid you are, and
I'm good. I live in the middle of nowhere and 300-yard long driveway.
Good.
And
some dogs, some guns,
7 big dogs.
Okay, good.
And,
okay.
other
So I'm just saying, I'm not, whatever. It's probably nothing, but some people. So, there's all sorts of different ways to make sure it's not tampered with. And it's important, right? Because like someone had some back door, or they did something, it'd be a problem. But it's just a way of recording your sort of proof of ownership and being able to use it later to send. a transaction when you want. But again, that's not my expertise. Like, I don't want to get too much into that. What I do is I talk to people, right? I talk to friends. I have a podcast, and I'm very much into the why should you do this? I get this all the time, and we get into it. And it's like, really, it's because it's in your interest. It's in your interest to do it. And it's in your interest because it's the future and you want to get there. It's just like the internet. Like, there's some people are like, Paul Krugman won a Nobel Prize in economics. Just shows what that's worth. He said the internet will have the impact of the fax machine. And so people are like, yeah, I'm good. I don't need this internet bullshit, but like, here we are. And I think it's the same thing. Like, I think like you'll want to be able to store your value. You'll want to be able to participate in the digital economy. AI is going to use crypto, probably Bitcoin, but maybe some other bullshit cryptos, to get funded and fund itself and incentivize itself, because you can't use physical. That's one thing you said, like what, physical gold in your hand. AI doesn't have hands. It only knows this, right? So I just think it's like you want to, do you want to get your email and your internet going in 1996 or 1997, or do you want to wait till 2003 and then everybody else on the job like knows what the hell's going on already? And then the second one for Nostr is, again, like, do you want to be able to pay people? Do you want to be in a place where people can pay you for your work as they see fit, when they want, not 1 cent more than they want? You're not under the hook for anything. You can pay other people. You get into this ecosystem early, and it matters. I have a story. I told this on my podcast. I used to do a Sirius XM show, and I got fired for the stupidest reason. But I got fired, and I was really bummed.
What did you say?
I made a bet on the air, and now they're like gambling all the time, because now gambling's legal. It's like, you got to make bets. You got to, but I made a bet with the guy, $50 on a baseball thing that, a guy hitting 50 home runs. I actually won the bet. I did get $50 for it. But my producer, who's a total pussy, can I say that on the show? Yeah. Was like, oh, they're very upset that you made a bet, these total nutless monkeys. And I just, was off air, but I was like, dude, what the fuck? Because they told us we were boring, me and my nerdy fantasy sports friend. That's what I used to do, partner. And I was like, well, I made a bet. I was trying to have fun, let's put some money on it, whatever. And they went and they fired my ass. So I was bummed. And my friend, I was talking to my friend about this, and my friend was like, it's like 2006. He's like, podcasting is going to be really big. You should start doing a podcast, like a fantasy football podcast. And I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. I was like, so I bought an $80 podcast mic, but I couldn't get the software to sync up. I was like, it's not like recording. When I talk into it, I don't know what's going on. It was 2006. And I just kind of lost steam messing with it. It wasn't like AI. You could just be like, walk me through the exact steps. It was like Google and whatever. And dude, if I had done a fantasy football podcast in 2006 with the site that I was working in, which had like a decent amount of distribution, this would have been, it wouldn't have been Joe Rogan, but it would have been big and it would have been easy, and nobody was doing it. But I didn't do it, right? I just didn't have the I didn't have the follow through. I was like, yeah, whatever. But that's what I feel about this new ecosystem. It's just like that podcast. It's like, okay, fine. You don't want to deal with figuring out the tech stuff to get your podcast going. Fine. Don't podcast. Let these other guys, blow up doing fantasy football podcasts, which a few of them did. But after that, right? Fine. You don't want to deal with it. Don't deal with it. I do think, I'm not saying everyone's going to get rich because they're going to Nostr or saving in Bitcoin, although you probably will get rich if you save in Bitcoin with enough of your savings. But I just feel like it's the future. You want to just suck it up and just get over the hurdle and figure it out.
Yeah, the thing I like about Nostr is the parallel to Bitcoin, right? I own my keys. So you can't kick me off. You can't tell me I can't post what I want to post. You can't censor me. You can't quiet me down. All you can do is individually block me or block me at your own relay, right? If for some reason I have some message that's that terrible, which I hope I don't, but I don't know. And that's a really, really cool thing. So okay, so here we are in current environment. We've seen a 50% drop from ATH being all-time highs. And I know some people that kind of went, oh yeah, now I got to get into this. And it was 6 figures. And I was kind of like, yeah, I mean, it's not going to go anywhere, but I know a lot of people now are just kind of like, oh crap, Like this was a mistake and everything else. And now I'm fortunate enough to have had my my purchases of, small amounts of coin over, years. So it's not a 50% loss for me. In fact, it's quite the opposite. But what do what's your, what do you say to people like that? They're like, oh my gosh, this is a tragic mistake I made.
Well, if you're using money that you need in the next, year or two, even 3 maybe, you're taking a chance. I mean, it might go up relative to your entry point, or it might go down, and sometimes dramatically, and it is a bit of a gamble. But there was people that bought at 1,000 and it dropped to 200 or whatever, and they were like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I bought 10 of these at 1,000. Now it's 200. I lost $8,000." And now they got, whatever, 700,000 with that if they held, but they probably panicked and sold and said, thank God I'm getting my 2,000 back out. That was stupid. There were people that bought, at 20,000 at the peak of 2017, and it went all the way down to 3,200 at the COVID crash, but now it's, whatever, 67 or 68. And okay. But the thing is, like, it's not like, if you want short-term in money that you're going to use, you're just gambling. You might be a plus EV gamble, but plus EV, it's like, would you bet all your money on a 55% chance? No, hell no. 45 comes in all the time, right? So it's like, it's plus EV though. Your expected return is more money than you have now. Yeah, but there's a 45% chance I have 0 and a 55% chance I double it. The plus EV is not enough. It has to also be that you can live with the temporary drawdowns. And so that's important. And so there's nothing wrong if you got in, nobody knows where it's going. You got in 125 and thought, hey, it's going to 400 this fall. I thought it might,
Okay.
there's nothing wrong with that, but it still could. Yeah, totally. But like, obviously, to say like, well, I bought it 120, now it's 68. I should have bought it 68. Well, that's just, sort of that's like tautology. It's like, yes, I could have gotten more for the same amount of money. Of course you would. If I knew the future, if the Seahawks won the Super Bowl, if I knew that, I did bet on them, by the way, but if I knew for sure, I would have just put all my money on the Seahawks because now that I know they won, it would have been a great bet. But it's like, yeah, okay, after the fact, it's very easy to say that. I would say to those people, be cool. Unless you need it. If you needed the money in short term, you made a mistake and you got to sell some. But if you don't need the money, then just be cool and don't try to time the market. Even Saylor says he can't time the market.
Hodl, which by the way has messed up my typing so bad. I can't type would like I would go, to save my life anymore. For some reason, it constantly comes out WOUDL. I'm like, so, but yeah, the Bitcoin mantra hodl, right, or hold, I think applies there, right? Because I've gone in, I was told, hey man, you need to get in on this when it was like hundreds of dollars per coin. And I was like, nah, I don't know. That's kind of sketchy internet money. I don't know. I wish I could go back in time for that particular little thing. But by the same token, I at one point had Microsoft stock back in the very early 90s, I believe it was. And it was like $40 a share or something. And then they got sued by the DOJ. I don't know if you remember this, but they did.
Of course, yeah.
And the stock tanked and I panicked and I sold it. That was not the brightest move. I had like, I don't know, 35 shares of Microsoft at the time. If I had just weathered that, I'd be fine.
Yeah, no, I mean, it really is, it's the same thing that, it's like Apple, Google, any of these companies that blew up, right? Like if you took the short-term profit, and I traded a couple of those a bit and I made a little money, but I thought, oh, this is good. I made money. Let's get out. I mean, really the best move is just never sell. Right now, of course, you got to pay for things in your life, right? If you have an infinite amount of fiat, then you don't have to worry about it. But if you need to pay for things, all the rich people, they just borrow against their stocks so they don't have to get capital gains taxes. And then the stocks just go up and over time, and the debt is trivial compared to the equity that they have. But Yeah, I mean, pretty much. And the thing is, this isn't a stock. So this is, so people, a lot of normies look at this like a stock, like, oh, it's been a really successful stock. Okay, so let's, maybe I should buy some, but it's kind of high. I'll wait till it drops. I don't think they realize, how much money can flow through Apple's capital structure, right? They make music, they have iTunes, they have podcasts, they have apps, they have, iPhones, they have, hardware, laptops, whatever. That's what is it? A $3 trillion, $4 trillion company. It could go to 8 trillion if they got bigger market share of some of this stuff, maybe, I don't know. Right. So more money could flow through Apple and the stock could go up in proportion. But we're talking about the market for money itself, right? When we're talking about Bitcoin, it's not like a thing that makes money. It is the money. So what do people do for money? Well, they invest in the S&P because they're inflation's happening. I need to earn on my money. Do you think they study the S&P and they know which companies are in it and they actually analyze it? Or they're just I'm just in an index fund because I need to get 7% a year on average because we're inflating 7% a year, by real metrics, not the fake CPI metrics. And so I need to invest just to stay afloat, right? Or I'll buy some bonds or I'll buy some stocks and bonds. Nobody's analyzed. I mean, there's professionals whose jobs that is, but every person now has to be a second job of what do I do with any savings that I have so I can't keep it in cash. I'm going to lose it, right? So if you have a money that doesn't debase, that actually goes up, in purchasing power over time, how much money in stocks and bonds that people don't really want? They're not it's one thing to invest in your buddy's startup that you think is a great idea. That's an investment. Nobody's investing in the S&P. They're just parking money there so they don't lose it. So it's the bond market and the stock. It's basically $300 trillion can flow through Bitcoin's capital structure. Whereas Apple, maybe 10 trillion. I don't know what else they're going to make. It's not a stock. It's the replacement for what most stocks and bonds serve as in terms of for the normal person to park their money so that they have it when they need it. That's what it is.
Interesting. Yeah, I like it. I actually, I keep seeing this come up. There's a person out there and I cannot for the life of me recall their name. I apologize. But apparently they've been just, over time, once a month or something like that, they throw $30 into Bitcoin, just $30. Just keep throwing $30 in, $30 in, $30 in. And I was seeing something the other day. The dude's now net worth, even with the decline, is over $1 billion.
We must have been throwing $30 in when it was at 10 cents. And then you got a lot of coins.
I'm sure, yeah. Right? Well, probably not even 10 cents. If you did it, 100 or even 200, even 500 right now, you'd be sitting on, multiple coins. Easy, right?
Yeah.
And so, I look at it, a lot like that. A little bit here, a little bit there. Obviously, if I see this, I love the NGD, NGU, right? Number go down, number go up. It's as simple as it gets. Every time I see it dip, I'm how much can I throw over there? And I just do. Maybe it's $50, maybe it's 500, but throw something in there, right? And if it goes down more, okay, we'll throw another $50 in there or something, and so far, to date, yes, I've had down periods, but I have never been down,
Right. Well, it seems like you're doing it wisely and just passionately,
wild ass guess. That's it.
Yeah. No. But it's a good heuristic, right? It's gone down a bit. I'll throw a little bit in, it's sort of you want it to go up because you have some, but why not be opportunistic on the downturns? And, you say they buy when it's blood in the streets, especially when it's in your own blood. And then it goes down and people say, oh, no, I'm selling, I'm out. And it's a total wrong approach, right? If you believe in the asset, if you think it's going to zero, then obviously get out. But if you just are uncertain about the timing, it seems like that is just, that's as good a heuristic as any. And nobody knows, there's all these chart people, they come up, they tell you it's going to be this, and they don't know shit. There's nothing wrong. I like the charts. I like, getting caught up in it myself, but but just don't be deceived that these people know anything. They don't know shit.
Yeah.
How do these other cryptocurrencies factor in? I know there are other ones. Don't ask me to name one because I couldn't name one. But I know there are other ones, and I know they've been introduced and then they instantly tanked. And how does that factor in with everything? Is there a possibility Bitcoin could be overtaken, or is that just because it's the first that it's more valuable? Or
That's a good question. They're affectionately referred to as shit coins by all the maxis, and the only one I know really anything about is ETH. And I once owned a tiny bit in 2000s, a long time ago, but I sold it. But I didn't even understand it. I was like, why do you even need this? It's not money. It's like this weird proof of stake, which is a whole different type of blockchain. And it was like, somebody was like, oh, well, it's going to be where they're going to digitize all the stock market and they're going to build it on that blockchain. And then anytime like there's a transaction fee, it's going to accrue to the holders of the ETH, I guess. That's the idea. I don't know if that's going to happen. That's what my friend told me. I have no interest in that. I look at them as sort of like private companies. Like it's like investing in like a tech company, like a tech startup, big one, I guess now, but it's like a tech startup. Do you believe in the founders? They control it. It's not decentralized. It's not really money. Think about Bitcoin, and it's the same with Nostr. It's a protocol. And Havok, you referred to it kind of what you said earlier. You said, if I want to post, nobody can stop me from posting, right? It's not Twitter where they're like, oh, you're banned, you have wrongthink, because that's a centralized platform and they can stop you from posting, right? Or Google can shut you out of Gmail, but they can't stop you from sending email, right? SMTP, protocol is the P, right? You know more than me. So that is
protocol.
There you go. Simple mail transport protocol, right? It's a protocol. So Gmail can kick you out of Gmail, but they can't stop you from sending email. And Nostr is also a protocol. So you can send it permissionlessly. Bitcoin is also a protocol. It's not a platform. Nobody controls it. So these other sort of private company type blockchains where there's like people controlling it, they can increase the supply. It's like they may have a use case that I don't want to say like none of them could have value because I really don't know enough about them, but that's like investing in somebody's company, right? But Bitcoin is a money protocol, and actually like cash is a protocol. I mean, digital dollars aren't. Your bank can shut you out, but if you have some $100 bills, right, like anyone will take your bills, right? That's a protocol. Language is a protocol, like the English language. Like, they tried to make it a platform where you had to use the right pronouns and you couldn't say this and you couldn't say retarded or something. They tried to make it a protocol, but they tried to make it a platform where they controlled it, but it's a protocol, right? If you can understand me and I can understand you, sorry, like we can transact, we can have a conversation. So I think the fact that one is a protocol, the other thing is that its network effect is the biggest, the market cap's the biggest. And then the biggest thing I think is, Satoshi, nobody knows who that is. And it's an immaculate conception of sorts, right? Like Bitcoin's born, but it's an effect without a cause, right? It's an immaculate conception. And the beauty of that is like, okay, well, let's say we wanted to have a competitor. Like I want to build a better Bitcoin, which many people have tried. And it's going to be even better. It's going to be faster. It's going to be easier UI, all this stuff. Okay, well, why would I do that? What would be my motive, right? Like to make money? Well, okay, if I'm going to make money off of it, well, then am I controlling it? Like, in other words, like as soon as you have a non-immaculate conception where somebody's the guy motivated to improve it, then all of a sudden you've defeated the whole thing that nobody controls it. So the reason I don't think it can be beat is anybody with a reason to beat it is itself failing to beat it by the very fact that he's got a motive to do so. It's already money. It's already there. You can just buy into the network with your money. You can mine it. You can buy into it. You can sell something for it. You can work for it. Why are you building another one? What's your motive, right? And whatever your motive is, it's not going to be the immaculate conception, right? So that's why it's kind of going to not be replicated, in my opinion.
There's one perfect, the way I like to make an example out of this is the PayPal thing. So PayPal created their own coin, right? And some yo-yo just typoed into existence $300 trillion of their coin, which they then came back and destroyed most of that coin. So you can't do that in Bitcoin. It's not as far as I'm aware, it's not feasible to do without breaking the laws of thermodynamics, essentially. So that's the difference. Someone else creates a coin, they can type into existence as much as they want and then destroy it whenever they want. So you've got essentially manipulatable shitcoin. Sorry, but I'm going to use the same term. Okay, so to be cognizant of your time, we are running close to this hour. So I actually am going to throw a question I didn't talk to you about. And this one's just a fun and just whatever, the answer can be whatever you want it to be. But okay, who is Satoshi Nakamoto?
I have no idea. I mean, I know what I know the most popular, like if there was a poll, it'd be like Nick Szabo and a couple other guys are, alleged to maybe be him, or Hal Finney he was the first guy that, Hal Finney died. But I don't know. Like I'm like I have a lot of ideas about this, like talking about this stuff, but like there's like literally 1,000 people on Nostr that like would know way more about like, the clues and the white paper and like the way he spoke. Apparently he was likely to be a British guy, maybe. Adam Bach is considered but nobody really knows. That's the thing.
I'm going to go with it's George Carlin resurrected.
Yeah.
That's my statement. All right. And then the one that I did kind of prep you for is throughout our lives, there's some figure somewhere that made a tremendous impact in our lives. And we like to give guests the opportunity to shout out that figure, whoever it may be. Historical, could be a 6th grade science teacher, could be your mother, whoever you want to give a shout out to.
Well, I'm just talking about this. My grandfather, who died when I was like 7.5, he used to bet the football games with me on the phone. This is 1977, 1978. I think he died in 1978. And it would be like, he'd let me pick the team, he'd let me pick whatever team without the point spread. And then we would just bet 10 cents per game. And pretty soon, I figured out like which teams were good. So I was up, a little bit of money, a couple bucks. There's one weekend where like all the underdogs won and I like lost most of the money back. And he was like, this is the lesson. Well, I ended up doing my job in fantasy sports and I wrote a sports betting column. And I just recently took another job, this job-ish, like trading these props on these different prediction sites. And I was just thinking about my grandfather because of that he loved sports, betting on football. And I was the one who's willing to listen to him. And it just became like the basis for like, how I made a living for like 25 years. So I'll give him the shout out, even though he's been dead for like, 50 years now.
That's so awesome. That's very awesome. All right. And then last piece is, what do you got going on? What are you working on? Where can people find you?
So the Chris Liss podcast, Fountain is the best way to access it. But you can, it's on Apple, iTunes, or whatever else. So, and if you're into sports, I'm doing baseball. I'm actually doing a fantasy baseball draft an hour from now, which I got to prep. I got to cram for. That's why I had to get off. But that's at Real Man Sports. So there's the Real Man Sports podcast and the Chris Liss podcast. And if you're interested, check those out.
That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on and giving us some of your time. Really appreciate it on such short notice as well. And another shout out to Nostr for that one. Just posted a request. Hey, is there anyone out there? And actually got quite a few replies. So we'll probably have at least 2 more guests coming on to talk Bitcoin. One of them is we've got some more maxi type personalities coming on, which will be neat. I'm going to try and get them to tone down into normie world, and we'll see how that works. But this is going to be fun stuff. You know where you can find us. We're everywhere, right? So just give us a search. We're now on fountain.fm, just like Chris. So come join Nostr. Come sign up for fountain.fm. You can give us some value if you feel we've earned it from you. As always, give us a like, thumbs up if you liked us. If you didn't, give us a thumbs down. Throw a comment in there. Tell us we suck. Whatever you want to do. Got ideas for a guest or a topic? Throw that in there as well. And remember, wherever you are, whenever you're watching this, have an amazing day.
Thanks for stopping by, Chris. See you, everybody.
Thanks, fellas. Appreciate it.